Yo, what's up, everybody? It's Wednesday, January 22nd. We had a strong close today. Market was just shy of a record high. S&P anyway, just shy of a record high. But I had some resistance up here, around 60.89 on the cash S&P index. So we closed below that. We were above that briefly, but we closed below that. I want to talk a little bit about comments made by Trump's Secretary of the Treasury nominee, this guy, Scott Bessent. I don't know much about this guy, so I'm just listening to some of his comments. I think I mentioned something about him in my video yesterday where he said he's not in favor of this national Bitcoin reserve, but I'm not going to be talking about Bitcoin today. I want to talk about other comments that he made with specifically about, he said he was not in favor of Janet Yellen's policy while she was Treasury Secretary of relying on Treasury bills as a quote-unquote funding instrument for the U.S. government. First of all, it's not funding anything. Okay, I've made many videos on this, that the sale of government securities, all that is a reserve drain. The money has to be there first. The dollars have to be in the system first before anybody can buy a treasury. Okay, so this whole notion of the government borrowing, that's just bullshit, because you cannot borrow something that does not exist. The dollars have to exist in the system, in the economy, for the government to sell any securities whatsoever, whether those be T-bills or bonds or notes, it doesn't matter. And the dollars get there from government spending. It is literally government spending that creates the dollars which we use to buy treasuries. And when the government sells bonds, notes, bills, all it is a reserve drain. It drains some of those reserves out of the banking system. And the sale of government securities is really an anachronism. It goes back to the gold standard days. And we really shouldn't even be doing it. It's not necessary. I mean, if regulators are concerned about reserves building up in the banking system and then potentially putting the banks in a situation where they could face insolvency because reserves have to have capital, which is a stupid thing because it's just basically dollars. There's no reason to have capital. It's not like a risky something, loan or security. And they could change that through a regulatory change. And maybe they will. There's talk about that right now. But the point is that the sale of government securities, number one, can only happen if the dollars are in the system first, and the dollars can only get into the system from government spending. That's what puts the dollars in the system. The government spends on whatever, military, salaries, Social Security, whatever it is, the dollars are in the system. And then people just, or institutions or people exchange the dollars for government securities because they're basically dollar equivalents, but they earn a higher interest rate. So he says, Bessent says he doesn't like this policy of selling T-bills. Why not? That's all you need. If the only function of selling securities is to drain reserves, then the shortest term instrument is basically all you need. There is absolutely no reason whatsoever for the U.S. government to offer this whole smorgasbord of maturities. You know, 30 days, 1 year, 2 year, 5 year, 10 year, 20 year, 30 year. It's ridiculous. There's no need for that whatsoever, because they all serve the same purpose. That's a reserve drain. And if financial institutions want to diversify, So the government offers them. I mean, there's other ways for them to diversify. And so it's completely unnecessary. So number one, from his statement, you understand that he does not understand the very function of the sale of government securities, which is, once again, a reserve drain and nothing more, which can be accomplished by the shortest term maturities. 30-day T-bills, that's all you need. We don't need to be selling all this other shit. 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. I even heard Jim Cramer many times when the rates were low, they said, oh, we should sell 100-year bonds to lock in the rate. What the fuck is lock in the rate? Like the government is some kind of, you know, mortgagee, like somebody going out and getting a mortgage. No, it sets the freaking rate. And yeah, you go, we're going to have some of you chiming in again. So we all sit around. Sorry, folks, we all sit around every Fed meeting waiting for them to tell us what the rate is going to be. So he says, I don't like this idea that that they rely too much on T-bills. Well, then you don't understand even the function of government security sales. You don't understand it. You think that there has to be some big selection, like you're going to Walmart. Gee, what do I want? Do I want the 30-year? Do I want the 10-year? Do I want the 2-year? Do I want the 30-day? Do I want the 90-day? No, that's all bullshit. That's all unnecessary. So you got that from this guy. Then he says, the real way to deal with this is to cut the deficit. Of course, we had to get to the old cut the deficit, right? Because that's what they're all thinking. We got to cut the deficit. We got to cut the deficit. The only time they ever try to offer a reason for cutting the deficit is because they say it's, you know, it's a risk of, you know, they're going to have to be at higher rates. The rates went higher because the Fed set the rates higher. I don't know if you were around, but from 2022, March 2022 until, when was the last rate hike? Was it like at the end of, it was December 2023, they raised interest rates something like 8 or 9 times, okay? The Fed raised interest rates something like 8 or 9 times. Not because of the deficit. They never gave that as a reason. They said it was because of inflation. And of course, we had the pandemic. We had the global supply chain shut down. We had all that stuff that is now, you know, coming back into balance. We see it. We saw it on the last CPI report. We saw inflation coming down. So like, we always get back with these guys to 2 things. It's always the same 2 things. This is a deeply ingrained mythology in their brains. It's a deeply, deeply embedded belief system that is never, ever going to change. And they don't try to think through the logic of it. For them, selling, you know, the government's borrowing. Again, how do you borrow what doesn't exist? The dollars must exist before anybody can borrow them, okay? And they can only come from one place, the sovereign issuer, which is the United States government. China doesn't issue dollars. Europe doesn't issue dollars. Canada doesn't issue dollars. Japan doesn't issue dollars. Britain doesn't issue dollars. Nobody else. Australia doesn't issue dollars. Nobody else. Okay? The dollars have to be there in the system for any government security to be sold. You can't even, the government doesn't sell it to the Fed. Not allowed. Doesn't work that way. The Fed buys it from dealers, primary dealers, who are designated by the Fed. The Fed says, okay, we're going to grant you the permission to be the entities that buy directly from the government at auction. Also, people can buy at auction. You can go online at every Treasury auction And you could buy, individuals can buy before the Fed. Okay? Me, you, all of us, we get to buy before the Fed. So when the government sells, it's us buying and dealers with our dollars that were put in the system, either directly to us from the government, maybe a Social Security check, maybe you're a government worker, you get a salary, you get a payment, maybe you're a defense contractor, or indirectly, like we work at our jobs, we transact with other people, there's dollars in the system, so we exchange our goods and our services, we get, and our labor, we get dollars, so the dollars are in the system. They have to be. Like I've used the example of the Monopoly game. Some of you, I don't know, if you've never played Monopoly, you should go out and you should get that game. Like it's a fantastic, you'll learn from it. And if you played a game without the money being distributed, let's say you go around the board and you land on chance or community chest and you pull up a card and it says pay tax of 75 bucks, but the money wasn't distributed, how do you pay? The money has to be distributed first. So this guy doesn't like the sale of T-bills, and that's only because he doesn't understand what is the function. And I'm sorry to say, this is going to be our Treasury Secretary, but at the same time, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised because all of these people, they're all in the same category. They all operate under the same flawed belief system. They're never, ever, ever going to change, despite the fact that the evidence is right out there. The facts are right out there in front of their noses. The logic is right out there in front of their noses. They're never, ever going to change. I'm telling you right now. There was a period over the last few years where I was hopeful that the MMT understandings and all the body of academic work that has been put out there by the MMT academics, people like Stephanie Kelton and Randy Ray and Warren Molzer and myself even. I'm not one of the head MMT people, if that's even a category, but I mean, I've been working hard over years trying to get these ideas out. There was a time over the last few years that a lot of this academic stuff, a lot of this teachings and concepts of MMT was put out there, and I was hopeful that it would start to catch on, but it hasn't. It's been buried and it's gone. And we're back to the same old, very, very flawed, wrong, erroneous, body of thought, of understand. I shouldn't even say it's understanding, because it's not an understanding. It's a misunderstanding. But that's what drives everything. And that's why I say to you guys, if you have knowledge, if you have understanding, and if you have, patience, some discipline, you take advantage of this stuff. Because it's like, if somebody comes to you and says, I don't know, you're in a desert and somebody comes to you with a pot of water and tells you, and you're both dying of thirst, but this person finds some water and tells you, no, don't drink this water. This water is bad for you. You will die. But you have the knowledge that you need water to live. Don't you think you could take advantage of that situation? You got one person who says, we cannot drink this water, although we are thirsty and dying of thirst, because this water is bad. And you have knowledge and you have understanding, and you just look at that person and say, you're fucking crazy. I'm taking that water. Same thing here, folks. Same exact thing. They're out there and they're pushing this shit that they don't understand. And we see it. And it's just a matter of, you know, going against that ignorance, going against that stupidity, going against that mythology, going against that whatever, having a little patience, because in the end, it's all going to work out the way it's supposed to work out. I mean, that's like physics. You apply a force to something, there's going to be a reaction, right? So, I mean, it's all going to work out. Now, you might have some short term, because all of these people are acting in concert as a mass movement, operating under these false ideas. They're going to push things around a little bit for a while, just like they did, you know, when Fed started raising interest rates in 2022 and they sold it down. And you had all the big shots from Wall Street, Mike Wilson, Morgan Stanley, all these guys saying, that's it, it's over, it's done. Because they didn't know, they didn't understand, they didn't get it. So, like, you just got to be aware. Anyway, that's who's coming in, Scott Bessent. I don't know, again, I don't know much about this guy. I thought I was kind of taken aback a little bit by his comments on crypto. Because I thought those were solid comments, rational, well thought out comments. And it went against what Trump is proposing right now, which I thought also was kind of interesting, because he's Trump's pick. You wouldn't think that he would be against. And this is one of the main ideas, economic ideas that Trump has coming in, the promotion of crypto. And again, I'm going to say it. I don't think these people, Trump included, have really thought out the long-term effect. And I'm starting to see now, I read an article today that over there, that stupid Davos thing they have every year. They're all talking about, all these heads of state talking about, yeah, man, we better get into crypto. We better get into Bitcoin. So that's where it's all moving. And they're all citing Trump as the catalyst for them to start that caused them to start considering that, you know, seriously considering that. Because Trump said, hey, we're going to do it in the United States. So now they're all, I'm telling you, this has some very, very serious implications for the U.S. dollar. Now, I'm not saying it's happening tomorrow. I'm not saying it's happening next week or even this year. But looking out, I think this could be one of the biggest ironies of all time. The fact that Trump, a couple of months ago or a month ago, said any country trying to circumvent use of the dollar or create an alternative instrument is going to be severely punished and not allowed to do business in the United States, something like that. He said, don't even try to come up with an alternative to the dollar. Yet here he is with this crypto push. And I have nothing against crypto personally, like the thing, if that's what you want to do. I'm just saying, like, you got the United States has the U.S. dollar, the most widely used, the most widely held financial instrument probably in the history of time. And he's saying, let's go to this other thing. Let's do this other thing. I mean, talk about irony. He will, if it goes in that direction, he will, by his own hand, end up doing what he threatened everybody else that they shouldn't do. Think about that. I mean, that is irony if I ever saw it. Anyway, that's it for today, folks. Don't forget, please like and subscribe. If you've done that already, thank you very much. And go to my website, sign up for a 30-day free trial to MMT Trader. See you tomorrow. Bye.